Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, Dr. Morris studied the new novel virus and formulated the function f of x equals 35 parentheses 1.03 to the x power, which gives him the number of infected patients with the virus at the end of x days. Which statement is the best interpretation on one of the values in this function? Okay, so what I'm looking for here is I need to find a statement, right, which is gonna give me the best interpretation of the scenario, right? And the scenario that is given to us, it's given on this equation that is up here. Okay, so it's very important now that we know what each one of those numbers represents, right? So what about if we rewrite it? So let me write it down here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to remind you is don't worry about that f of x, because remember, that is the same thing as y. Very good. So let me go ahead and write it down. Now, if you feel more comfortable, we can rewrite it like this, just so that you understand that that's exactly the same. Because I don't want you to say, but all the other questions that we did had a y. How come this one doesn't? It's exactly the same, right, guys? Okay, so let's look at the numbers. So before I look at the answer choices, what about if I write down the equation? Remember the one that says a times b to the x power? So we're going to write it down right below here. Remember this one? Because if I write it like that, maybe that can help you remind yourself what does the a represents, right? So this is my a value. Do you remember what a represents? And this is my b value, right? It's very important that we know these two, okay? So a, remember, is always the starting value, okay? So that's how much I start with. And b is how something is changing, right? The rate of change for something, okay? And in this case, the rate of change for this will be the percent in which the infected patients is changing per day. Is that right? So keep that in mind. So now I know that A is 35, which is the starting value. So I'm going to kind of look through the answer choices, right? And I'm going to look at letter B because I do see a 35 in there. Is that right? So since I know 35 is my starting value, let's read letter B. Letter B says, at the end of the day, there are 35 infected patients. Now, this one says at the end of the day. So can that be true? Is 35 at the end of the day? No, because we said that 35 is the starting value. So 35 would be how many patients were infected at the beginning of the day, not at the end of the day. So letter B cannot be my answer then. Okay, so let's cross it out because that's not my end of the day value. It's at the beginning of the day. Okay, now we can go back now and look at B. B is 1.03. So now remember 1.03 is greater than 1. So that means that it was an increase. Is that right? Yes, it was an increase. Now that, remember, comes from the percentages. So if you think about percentages, I'm going to write down 100%, right? But think about that one as 100, okay? Because this is my decimal, but this before, should it be a percent? If you want to go back, remember percentages? So you can do two things. You can either multiply 1.03 times 100, and that will give you the percent that we're dealing with. There's a decimal here, don't forget that. So that will be 103, and then the two zeros here. Move the decimal twice, and that gives me what? 103%. Is that right? So we're kind of going backwards, okay? So that's what I was going to do on the right side over here. If it went up, remember this would be 100 plus you 3%, because that's how I will get what? 103%, which is what I have right here. So let me back it up a little bit just so that you don't get confused. The B is 1.03, but that's my decimal. If I want to think about the percent for that, I will need to multiply by 100. Is that right? And once I do that, then it'll give me 103, and that will be my percent. And these, I'm going to go back now here. If I move the decimal, remember this will be 1.03 as a decimal. So I do see letter A that says the number of infected patients increases 103% every day. Is that true? It increases 103% every day? No, right? It increases a 3%, okay? Which combined with the 100 gives you 103. But it's not 103 each or every day, okay? So no, it's not letter A because it's not increasing 103 every day. So let's look at C and D. On C, I see the word increases, and on D, I see the word decreases. So is it decreasing? How do I know it's not decreasing? Because B is not less than 1. B is actually, and I'm going to write it down here, B is greater than 1. So if B is greater than 1, then this will be an increase. Okay, so it increases. So that's how I know D cannot be the answer. Okay, right? And letter C says the number of infected patients increases 3% every day. And that's true. It's 100. That's how much I start with. And this is how much it increases at 3%. So the answer for this is letter C. Very good. Okay, so it's very important. Notice how I did not even look at the answer choices. First, I analyzed the problem that was given to me as far as like knowing and remembering that A and B are specific values for us. Okay, very good.